need you. We confess today that we need you as well. Lord, thank you for your goodness and your love for us. And we ask all these things in your name, Christ. Amen.
All right, our next item is the city's attorney's report on closed session items. Mr. Chaffin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. There were two reportable items in closed session. Both item A and closed session item B were a notice of rejection of the claim. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Agenda modifications. Seeing none. So the next items are ceremonial presentations. We have a special presentation we need to make before we get into items number 1 and 2. So if the council could meet me down in front, and if could Pastor Callahan join me down front as well, please. Thank you for being here. Okay. I guess it was with short notice, we were advised that the National Day of Prayer is coming up here on May 7th. And so we have a little recognition that we would like to do. And Pastor Dan here has graciously agreed to accept this from us as a council. Whereas from the earliest days of our nation, people across this land have turned to prayer for guidance, strength, and unity. And prayer has long served as a source of hope in times of challenge and a foundation for gratitude in times of blessing. And the National Day of Prayer has been part of our heritage since it was declared by the First Continental Congress in 1774. Whereas the National Day of Prayer is an opportunity for Americans of all faiths to join in united prayer to acknowledge their blessings, to request healing for wounds endured, to pray for continued guidance for our leaders, and bring wholeness to our communities across the country. Now, therefore, be proclaimed that I, Mark Boomgarden, the mayor of the city of Yuba City, and the rest of the council do hereby recognize May the 7th, 2026 as National Prayer Day. Next item is the National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week proclamation. I'd like to invite Lieutenant Bullard and the dispatch team to come forward with us, please. On in. So it's my honor as the mayor to read the proclamation here tonight. But it's important to note these are the first responders of the first responders. These are the folks that sit at that very first call that initiates our actions as public safety, or the actions of the public safety professionals that end up responding to emergencies. And it doesn't end there, because many times they stay on the line to assist, whether it be medically or psychologically or whatever's needed by those making that call. Whereas the Yuba City Police Department public safety dispatchers play a vital role in the protection of human life and property in our community, and public safety dispatchers are responsible for responding to telephone calls from the public for police, fire, and emergency medical assistance, and for dispatching, said assistance to help lives and property of our citizens, and dispatchers endure long shifts while handling life and death emergencies. Yuba City Public Safety Dispatchers' service and dedication to duty have resulted in countless lives saved, injuries minimized, and property damages reduced. Public safety dispatchers are typically the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety dispatchers perform their duties behind the scenes, utilizing advanced communication systems and critical decision-making skills while remaining a calm and steady voice during emergencies. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mark Baumgarten, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of our entire council and the citizens that we serve, do hereby recognize and honor our Yuba City public safety dispatchers whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and our citizens and first responders safe. Lieutenant Bullard, we would like to go ahead and present this to you and also give you an opportunity to speak.
Just want to thank them. They do all the work. They're the first ones to answer the phones in emergencies. They do an amazing job. They step up to the challenge, and they are the true professionals. So they're the ones deserving of this award. So thank the council, and again, from me, thank you guys for all you do.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I've had to call you more than I've ever wanted to. That is not, having you there, though, is so reassuring to me. It saved my life a couple of times now. And I can't thank you ladies enough. And just keep up the good work.
Yeah, I'll say what Mike said. I actually haven't had to call 911, so that's good news. But I've been in the station a few times, and the level of calm in there is really, really impressive. You all do a very good job, so thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We can't say thank you enough to what you guys do. You guys are the calm in the storm when our lives are falling apart. And I will tell you that when you're in that storm, there's so much good that you guys do in that moment that helps these men and women out here when they arrive be able to help us. So tell you how much you guys mean to us.
So thank you for your continued professionalism, because you guys are professionals, ladies are professionals. And thank you for making our community safe, keeping our community safe. Thank you.
Last chance. All right, let's get the photo. Thank you. All right. Next, we have item number 2, which is National Police Week proclamation. So I'd like to invite Chief Runyon and our entire Yuba City Police Department family to come forward, please. I have to sneak by you guys to get my glasses. Sorry. Still trying to get used to these glasses, sorry. So where's the chief? He's hiding. There he is. All right. This is our proclamation for the Yuba City Police Department. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation designating May the 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and an annual observance to honor the nation's fallen law enforcement officers, and National Police Week, a time of reflection and appreciation for the ultimate sacrifices made by law enforcement who were killed or disabled in the line of duty. It is important that all citizens understand the challenges, the duties and responsibilities of their police department, and that the members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property. Whereas the city of Yuba City is very grateful for the day-to-day heroism of our officers, both past and present, as well as their families, who have given so much of their lives in service to our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mark Boomgarden, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of our entire council and the citizens we serve, do hereby recognize and honor the men and women of law enforcement whose diligence and professionalism keep our citizens safe. So, Chief, we have this proclamation, and I'm sure the rest of the council is going to mention this as well, but our deep, deep, deep appreciation and respect for the work that you all do in keeping us and the citizens and the guests of Yuba City safe.
So, Mayor and Council, thank you for the recognition. We appreciate it. And I can say for the men and women in this job that we are very thankful to work in a community that really supports us. We have something that not a lot of other police departments have, and that's community support. And we're very thankful for that every day. Also to the men and women that do this job, very proud of the work that they do and the service they continue to try and provide in difficult circumstances. And we're challenged with those things every day, and we're constantly finding ways to do the best we can for our community. So thank you.
All right, go start on this side.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for everything you do day in and day out. I think Chief just said it really well there a minute ago. You are valued in this community. And just to quote our sheriff, what he gave a presentation yesterday, more often than not, in this community, you guys get the thumbs up, you don't get the finger. And that made the people in the audience that I was in felt really good, because I think most people that I deal with day in and day out appreciate you folks for all your hard work. So thank you.
Start by saying thank you. But I'm going to go back to something else the chief said, and he was talking about the community support. That community support starts with each and every one of you. You guys are such professionals. You roll up to the scenes. You handle things in such an incredible way to protect our city and also protect yourselves and take care of the situation. We can't say thank you enough. But always remember that this community has your back. We have your back.
If I wasn't on council, I'd be extremely intimidated right now for all the speeding I used to do. But thank you all so much. I've been on a few ride-alongs, and it's just been such an honor to know that we have a stellar, stellar group of guys and girls, women and men, rather, working for Yuba City and keeping us safe. Every single day you go out is a sacrifice, and it's a potential sacrifice of life as well. Cannot thank you enough. I really appreciate all of you, and I know the city does as well.
Chief, I got this ticket.
No.
No, I'm kidding, everyone. No, you all do such a great job in town. Like the other council members were saying, you definitely get the thumbs up here in our community. And I just like you to all stay safe. That is the number one priority for me. Every day when I see any of you, stay safe. I want you to go home at night. And that's the most important thing to me. So with that, thank you all.
All right, photo. Let's go in the back. I was trying to hide. Hold on.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
All right. We really do have a top-notch police force. All right, item number 3, appearance of interested citizens. You are welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comment is taken on action items appearing on the consent calendar or business items on the agenda when they are called. Public comment on any other items within the scope of the city's jurisdiction, including items not listed on the agenda, will be considered at this time. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Members of the public submitting written requests at least 24 hours prior to the meeting will be allotted 5 minutes to comment per speaker. Repetitive comments may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinions of the group. And I do have a speaker card from Tony Farley, and I also have a written request. So Gabriela Urdaneta, if you are in the audience, stand by. Mr. Farley, Tony Farley.
This is Tony Farley, non-sworn Farley. Tony Farley, here to thank everybody for his service. Thank City Council for his service, the first responders, the fire, police dispatch, non-sworn civilians, unsworn, sworn officers, non-sworn personnel, the elected officials, appointed officials, honorary officials, volunteer. Thank you for everybody for his service. Thank the police chief, fire chief, thank the Fresno turning over there. Thank you, Robert Bendorf, city manager. Thank you, Tony. I hope Tony Coyle become the mayor, like the first Sikh mayor happens here, plus Joe Steinberg in Sacramento. Thank you, Michael Pasquale, the vice mayor. Thank you, the fire chief mayor. He can't finish class. He can finish class A. I want to see him Class A and police moral. See the police moral. See where his Class A's. Thank you, David Shaw, A.K. Brandon Barnes, Brandon Barnes and Wells and Doug Moffa. Thank you, Wade. Thank you, Wade, for his service. Thank you, Sierra, for his service. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, thank you. The utility director, thank you, the fire chief, thank you, Doug Dynasty over here, big Doug Dynasty over here. Thank you, Gina, the HR director, former county employee. Thank you, Doug Libby, his Tesla. Thank you, Officer Ernest, and thank you, detectives. Thank you, everybody. And also thank you, dispatchers, for his service. Thank you, Tony over there, and thank you, the Air Force guy over for his service. Thank you for his service. For Sacramento, you've seen the Sacramento Valley.
All right. Thank you, Tony. Is Gabriela in the audience? please.
Thank you. Gabriella Urdaneta, along with my two kiddos, I'm providing public comment regarding the resolution that is before you today regarding a proposal of a 2% transaction fee associated to all debit and credit card payments made by citizens to the city, for example, for the water bill. As it stands for fiscal year 2025-26, the revenues from water and wastewater operating represent approximately $35 million. Minus the associated expenditures, the sources of revenue still account for $3 million in a net surplus. The surplus these have been used, continue to be used for various other projects that may be unrelated to water operations. Currently, there's already a 3% transaction fee charged for all debit and credit card payments submitted online. As stated before you today stands the resolution which proposes a new 2% debit and credit card transaction. The resolution as it is written does not differentiate between a debit or credit card transaction, which would be nice to have clarified. As it stands, as I stated, when we come in person, we are able to pay, for example, using a debit card, and it doesn't charge the same amount as it does online. We're not able to pay in cash in person, so we forced to use either pay for ordering checks. I'm of the generation I don't own any checks, but we'd be forced to either purchase checks, purchase a money order, or purchase a cashier's check to avoid that fee, that transaction fee, as cash is not permitted to be transacted for your water bill. The resolution also states that the city incurred approximately $95,000 in total transaction fees for fiscal year 2024-25. What the resolution doesn't include is how much revenue was generated by those same transactions. Essentially, we would be paying you to pay you for our water services. A key priority for this council has long remained the quality of life for the citizens. As a citizen, as a mother, my essential priorities include keeping the lights on, keeping food on the table, clothes on their back, and the water running. As a citizen, we have no other choice on who we purchase our water services from. We're also facing potential utility rate increases down the line as it is. I implore you today to vote no on this resolution, which will further financial burdens to an already struggling community. I speak not only for myself, however, I do so with a conviction that even one voice matters. And it is that serious. It is that serious for my elderly neighbors who are living on a very fixed income and who are already, as it is, making something out of nothing. To my neighbors who are a young couple who work opposite swing shifts to make ends meet, to the single mom working 2 jobs. It is that serious, and I ask that you would take those into consideration today. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. We will attribute those to item number 5 on the consent calendar. Anybody else have public comment from within the audience about an item that's not on the agenda? Okay. Seeing none. Next item is the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time that the council votes on the motion unless members of the city council request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. Do we have any additional? I've got that. So to the consent calendar, entertain any polls from the council?
Through the mayor, can we pull item 5 since we've had a speaker?
We can.
Okay.
Okay.
So move that.
All right. Any other items? All right. Public wish any items to be pulled? Seeing none. All right, let's have a motion on the consent calendar from items 4 through. You catch up here? Let's do this. Let's talk about item 5 before we do the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mayor.
Or do we want to bring that to business items? Let's talk about item 5. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for coming up and speaking about that. A lot of consideration went into this. When it comes to public funds, that cost is to us, the city, and allowing people to just get that is, in essence, a gift of public funds to those people that come in and choose to transact their business that way. And I totally understand what you're saying. There are other alternatives that you will have that you will not incur that. A lot of other communities, it's 3.1%. So we did take that in consideration when we reviewed this. And when I'm looking at something like this, that's exactly what I look at. Did we step back away from what we could have done? And there are other alternatives to pay your bills. So I get it. I'm one of those fixed income people myself. And it's the cost of doing business, and to give public funds, in essence, we're incurring that cost for the public. That's not what I'm here to do for the public. I would, if it's $1, if it's a $10, $1 million, whatever, in my conscience, I couldn't do that. So that's why I'm going to accept this the way it's written, so that you know, and that's the reasons why.
Through the mayor. Thanks, Mike, for your comments. The big thing that we need to look at, and I would encourage you to get with our customer service folks and such, there are absolutely ways that you never incur that by using, if you're paying with a debit card, it's coming straight out of your checking account. You can actually go online and use it and do your bank account and come through. So there's plenty of ways around it. And but back to Mike's point, there's a lot of other things that come back into making sure that we have safe drinking water, wastewater, all of that. And there's certain ratios with things that we have to maintain. And it's an overhead expense that we were one of the very few municipalities out there that were still absorbing that. If you go online and pay, well, DMV, you can't even do it. You got to pay it and pay their 3.5–4% fee for a convenience for DMV or state taxes or federal taxes. So, but there are ways. So you can absolutely pay your bills and not incur a fee. And I would encourage you to get with our customer service and know what those ways are.
I do have a question. Maybe Deanna, could you answer this for me in regards to the debit card? I think I heard Gabriella mention that the debit card was going to incur a fee.
Yes, the debit and credit cards will incur the 2% fee.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
May I have I just wanted to offer a couple of comments for clarification.
Please.
So, first of all, I appreciate the speaker's comments, and it's never a great thing to do when you're imposing fees, right? But there is cost recovery. California state law allows us to collect those fees. Either that or they get charged to the general public. So in other words, a person that chooses to pay with a credit card, that fee is imposed by the credit card company. And if you're paying cash, there is no fee associated with that. Now, with our customer service at our window here, folks can pay cash. So I'm not sure if you weren't allowed. If you weren't allowed to pay cash, let me know, because they accept cash all day long and there's no fee. So if you have a person paying cash and then 2 minutes later, a person walks up paying a credit card, there's a fee associated with that. And so the balance we're trying to achieve is fairness for everybody, right? And if the person that paid in cash doesn't have that fee, but the person that paid with the credit card does, but the city absorbs that. The person paying for that fee, when we look at our total cost of delivering services, which is all worked into our budgets, that person paying cash and other folks that didn't pay by credit card are paying that fee for the most part. And that's where you try to get to a spot of fairness. Sometimes, you know, it's a little difficult. It's a tough item to dice up. But in this case, California does allow you to do that. And our cost, obviously, for those credit card fees are pretty significant, just under $100,000. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that we mentioned that. But again, I appreciate nobody likes paying those fees. But when you use them at retail stores or others, the merchant's responsible for paying that. Just like with sales tax, the merchant is actually responsible for paying this sales tax. They just choose to pass it on to the consumer. And in this case, a lot of retail, in fact, most of them, pass along that as either the transaction fee or it's a surcharge or what have you. And that's pretty much what happens in everyday business these days. So again, it's a tough road, but we feel it's important that we actually start doing this in fairness to our residents and businesses.
Through the mayor, given that we're on item number 5, before we move away from it, my recommendation is to open this to public comment for just this item for those who have not already spoken on it before you take a vote. Thank you.
I have a comment before we do that. The decision that this council's made in regards to beginning to charge fees is one that we have actually tussled with for several years. And the fact that we are doing that isn't something that we would necessarily like to do, as you've heard, but it is something that as times fiscally continue to be tighter and tighter amongst cities, it is something that we felt was needed to be done. And as the vice mayor said, the 2% that we're charging for a credit card fee is demonstrably less than any other credit card fee that I'm aware of or that I currently pay for other services. As Councilmember Shaw mentioned, I encourage you to get together with staff to talk about how best to avoid those fees if that's a choice that you make. And you know, we do sympathize with this. This isn't something, again, that we just decided to go up out of the air and pull out. This is we've tussled with this for a bit. With that being said, opening up now for any other public comment on item number 5, if there's anyone that would like to talk about it. All right, seeing none. A procedural question, Shannon, should we take the consent calendar as a whole now, or should we wait on item 5, get the...
My suggestion is actually just take a vote on item 5 right now, and then you can move to the remainder of the consent calendar.
All right. As it pertains to item 5, debit and credit card processing fees, we'll entertain a motion.
Through the mayor.
Move to approve.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Kirchner, a second by Councilmember Shaw. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any noes? Hearing that, item number 5 passes unanimously. Now we'll move back to the consent calendar. Items 4 through 12, with the exception of item 5. Back to the council.
Through the mayor,
Yep.
move to take action on said items on the consent calendar.
That'd be a motion for approval, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Pasquale, a second by John Cassidy. By Councilmember Cole. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any noes? Okay, consent calendar is passed unanimously. All right, we're going to move on to item number 13, traffic calming the Sanborn Road and McCune Avenue. This is going to be presented by Josh Wolf, our Public Works Director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. Tonight, I wanted to give you all an update on traffic calming efforts on Sanborn Road in the McCune Avenue area. So That's new. So first, I'm going to talk about kind of the history of where the traffic calming started with Sanborn Road. Then I'll get into the public meeting that we held with about 42 residents. Then we'll talk about different options that we have moving forward in that area. And then finally, I'll bring it back to council for their thoughts and recommendations. So for the project history, what started this entire process off was in July of 2024, there was a vehicle accident at Sanborn and McEwen Road. What was happening was you had a car that was speeding southbound on Sanborn Road, took a turn far too quickly eastbound on McEwen Avenue and ended up hitting this tree right here. Had the tree not been there, it would have been in the house. The resident that lived at this house actually reached out to the city, county officials requesting a meeting. That's where everything started. From summer to winter of 2024, city staff met with residents in the area to talk about different options. Just want to talk about the road characteristics just so it's a clear picture. Sanborn Road is a collector roadway, but it's not a typical collector, whereas on the east side of the road, you have the road that's been built out with street trees, street lights, sidewalks, curb and gutter, whereas on the other side, the west side, it's more of a county type road where it's not fully built out with curb and gutter. It hasn't been necked down like most neighborhood roads have been, so it has a wide open feel. When you have a wide open feel on a roadway, drivers tend to drive less stressed, meaning they feel more comfortable driving faster, more carelessly. When you have a more constricted area, it's the opposite. Speed, slow down. Drivers are more conscientious as they are driving and typically drive slower. So initially, staff met with the residents. The three things that the residents wanted were slower speeds, something that was cost effective, and something that would mediate the turns on Sanborn Road. So initially, staff proposed a pilot roundabout project, and then brought it back to council for vote with this design, and council approved it. In 2025, during the summer, staff installed the mini roundabout. Shortly thereafter, residents reported issues of navigability, not only with larger package trucks, but even F-250s that were extended beds, which are pretty common in our area, having issues being able to make the turn, making three-point turns. So as staff saw that as an issue, we removed the roundabout shortly thereafter in the winter. Then in March 2026, residents reached back out wanting to reopen the conversation. So we had a meeting with the public. So on March 11th, we met with the public. As I said previously, there were about 42 total in attendance, including area residents, fire department local to the area, the sheriff's department, which enforces this area as it's in Beat 6. And the purpose of the meeting was to talk about potential options that we could implement to help calm traffic, and also more ultimately get the residents' feedback to see what their thoughts were, what they see day to day, and what they want to see. So in that meeting, now I want to go through the data that we collected. So one of two methods that we used to get data from the residents was a voting board, in which we proposed 9 different types of traffic calming, or sorry, 8 different types, sorry, counting wrong. 8 different types of traffic calming, 7 of which are horizontal measures, which either narrow down the roadway through a median, through pinch points, or something changing the center alignment of the roadway, causing vehicles to slow down. These are typically the first type of traffic calming that you implement after you've done restriping and signage. And we also included a vertical measure. In terms of votes, we gave residents green stickers and red stickers, green being if they liked the idea, and red being if they did not like the idea. As you can see, most of the votes were negative for the horizontal measures, aside from potentially the pinch point, which had kind of a 50-50 vote. But the majority of the votes for the residents was a desire for speed humps in the area. The other way that we collected data was through comment cards. Through these comment cards, we asked if the residents lived in the area, what their main traffic concerns are, when do they often see these problems, and then if they had any additional comments or ideas. So regarding traffic concerns, in order of most reported, the least reported. We had speeding vehicles, reckless driving, pedestrian safety, cut through traffic, and visibility issues. So the top three, kind of going back to the whole conversation of where this started. We also took the data that they added through additional comments. Majority comment was requests for speed bumps and or stop signs. We also had some people that requested just speed bumps, no stop sign. There were a couple of requests for speed feedback signs, so the LED signs that either flash slow down or flash the speed that you're actually going in the area. One resident requested a choke point with median and speed bumps, and one requested an additional traffic officer. So I'll go through the three options: the always stop, the speed humps, and that choke point option. Local governments are beholden to the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, or CAMUTCD, in terms of any types of traffic control that they implement. Multi-way stops in MUTCD have 5 warrant criteria that you're supposed to meet at least one of which prior to implementing any sort of stop sign. So our staff collected the data on vehicle speed, traffic volume, vehicle accidents, and ran through these criteria, which included crash experience, sight distance issues, transition to signal control. So if you have an area you've already gotten approved for a signal, you could put a stop sign in beforehand. It's not the case here. 8-hour traffic volume and other factors such as left turn conflict control in areas where you have a low level of service where it takes a long time for a vehicle to turn left or it's hazardous to turn left, improving traffic operational characteristics, or bike and pedestrian improvements. So after going through the warrant criteria, staff found that none of the criteria were met for an all-way stop. Another option that was brought up was speed bumps. So staff collected some quotes for temporary bolt-down speed cushions with wheel cutouts, as you'll see on the right-hand side here. Here's a model, and here's kind of a few examples of where they've been put into place. In order to implement these adequately, you want to have speed humps spaced anywhere between 400 and 600 feet so that you're having constant slowing of vehicles to make sure that vehicles aren't just ramping up speed. So we would need about 4 rows of these. The cost for that would be about $12,000. Staff can install these in-house. In addition, we wanted to see what the permanent cost would be if we wanted to do asphalt. And we reached out to a neighboring county, Sacramento County, that implements these, and it's about $10,000 per row. So for the same permanent installation, it'd be about $40,000. So I will say staff isn't opposed to installing speed humps and cushions as a last resort traffic calming measure. Like I said before, we like to go striping improvements, then horizontal deflection, and then to the vertical deflection as it's the most disruptive. Though staff can't fully support vertical traffic control measures on arterials and collectors at this time. And the reason I say that is I want to show council a map of the functional classifications of roadways in Yuba City. So this map shows basically 3 different road types. You have the principal arterials, which are Highway 99, Highway 20 in red. You have minor arterials, which are the major thoroughfares through town: Bridge Street, Franklin, Lincoln Road, South Walton, Garden Highway. And then you have major collectors. These are the purple ones that carry you over to the arterials like Sanborn Road, Tharp Road, Harder Parkway, Blevin Road, Stabler, Clark, et cetera. In practice, most other agencies don't consider speed humps for these collector thoroughfares just because of the response time that it can inhibit or that it could slow for police and fire. I will say this area does have residential characteristics, and the temporary measures are something to consider as they can, if it's ineffective or we see issues, they could be pulled pretty quickly if we see issues. But in general, speed humps we like to keep on more residential roads. So basically every other road in here that's not highlighted with the specific color, that would be the area that staff would prefer to keep speed humps as an option. The last one was the median pinch point option, which I'd pointed out only about 4 people were interested in this in the meeting. What this is basically you're creating a pinch point by narrowing the roadway lanes down to 12 feet. 10 feet each lane, so 20 feet total. And at 5 points along the roadway, you're creating a median with a 2,500-pound sand barrel in the middle and delineators that stand 4 feet tall on either side. So basically, you have to deflect 4 to 5 times as you're traveling down the road, which will cause vehicles to slow down. But what's nice with this method is the delineators are the knockdown type, which means if a fire truck needs to get to a spot or a police officer needs to get through there quickly, they can run over the delineators, they'll pop right back up. But residents typically don't want their mirrors or their sides smacked, so they'll drive more cautiously through there. The other down factor to this is it would require reducing about 5 parking spaces along the corridor from Cherry Street to Lincoln Road. One last factor is, since we did remove the roundabout, we retained all of the materials. So all of the costs there would be no material costs associated with this, just time for the staff to implement this. With that, I wanted to get on to next steps. First, I wanted to bring things back to council for the recommendation and thoughts. And then, so we'll do that. I wanted to mention that in the coming months, we have a project, striping project that is going to narrow the lanes of the roadway on Sanborn Road down to 10 feet, regardless of what happens tonight. So that lane narrowing is going to happen. Based on the direction for tonight, staff will implement whatever council recommends based on the traffic calming. And then I just wanted to mention that there has been there have been a number of requests over the last year or so since I've been director regarding desire for neighborhood traffic calming. So in the Sanborn area, on 2nd Street, over on Lincoln and Bunce, there's been numerous times where residents have reached out. And the problem for public works staff is we don't have a program for that really lays out how should we implement, or what are the steps we should take, or what are the resources that the residents need, like different traffic calming methods, different types of petitions for the residents, information sheets. So we're going to be coming back to council at some point with the contract to develop a neighborhood traffic calming program that'll lay out different funding mechanisms and different options for residents in each different type of scenario you may have in residential areas throughout the city. So with that, I'd like to take it back to council for their thoughts and recommendations regarding the traffic calming options.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Councilmember Kirchner, I figured I'd start with you. It's your district.
Through the mayor. Thank you, sir. First of all, Josh, thank you. And I'd like to thank staff for the enormous amount of work that they've brought to this project. So thank you very much. A lot of things unravel on this one to unpack. But first of all, you brought up in the presentation something that was brought up on 2nd Street, and that is that wide open feel. Councilwoman Cole and I attended a very similar meeting, a neighborhood meeting on 2nd Street, discussing exactly what the folks on Sanborn are dealing with currently. And they attribute their issue to right about the time that the county vacated the buildings on 2nd Street. You know, if you remember back when the county was in those buildings down there, the street was full of cars, parked cars, and so you didn't have that wide open feel. You do now, and so it's very similar to what's happening on Sanborn. The folks on 2nd Street actually did their own research, and they sat out there on the street and they counted the number of cars that blow through that stop sign at Garden and 2nd. And the epiphany is, just because there's a stop sign there doesn't mean people are going to stop. At the end of the day, it does not mean they're going to stop. From time to time, I'll go through that neighborhood and PD will have a unit parked out there, but they can't do that all the time. They just don't have the resources to it. The resources for traffic control enforcement is limited with the city and with the county, because this includes the county. But my thoughts on this project is based on what I've seen on 2nd Street and also with staff's recommendation. I don't think personally a stop sign is going to solve the problem. I think what's going to solve the problem is to somehow limit that wide open feel going through there. And as far as speed bumps, I think if we were to figure out a way where it doesn't inhibit first responders to getting to point A to point B, that would be an option as well. But this is as Josh mentioned, this is a problem that's popping up all over town, whether it's on Sanborn, whether it's on 2nd Street. I had conversations on Hillcrest. It's kind of everywhere. And so, and the other thing that I'll be very careful to say, but when this happens in your neighborhood, these are your neighbors at the end of the day. And I've been on Sanborn. I've seen it's I get it. So if you're looking for recommendations or thoughts, I think you've got mine. So thank you.
We'll go in order. Yeah.
This one's kind of a tough one because it's the only thing that comes to my mind is which came first, the chicken or the egg? Because you just keep going round and round in circles. We're going to go in and put traffic calming measures in. We're going to possibly take away access for the residents that live there for parking on the street. But then we put things in that we have expectations, whether it be speed bumps, whether it be the roundabout, whether it be stop signs, whatnot. Then we have expectations with the motorists that drive on that. And I'll be honest with you, it's kind of the wild, wild west out there throughout. Not just, I just got back from our ranch in Alabama and almost got hit there. I mean, I think something happened to them over the past decade. They think everything is a suggestion all across the world. You know, you put a flashing speed sign up. Well, that's not a speed limit. That's well, let's see if I can peg it out, you know. Start thinking how the kids think when they're driving stuff. And other council members did you say you speed? No, I'm kidding. But you see why I say it's kind of almost like the chicken and the egg. Which way do you go? But the bigger thing that I'm more concerned about is, you know, what are truly our options, because we're not going to be able to solve this problem, I don't think, without people changing behavior. And I know that with traffic calming measures, that's what we're trying to get them to do, is change their behavior. But you mentioned up there that there's state statutes, correct? That dictate what we can do. Yeah, what we can do and what we can't do. Mr. Chaffin, can I query you for a second? Are we, you know, we got to be careful with what we do. And are we tiptoeing and getting ourselves in trouble if we, you know, do things that are, what's the state done to us that we can and cannot do in these things? Can we put the speed bumps in? Can we put stop signs in? You know, it seems like it's driven on data. Where are we really at?
So the state has set standards, and they've done so for public safety. They want people to be safe. For example, I'm sure you've seen situations where there'll be like a blind curb, and then somebody will put a stop sign. Well, as you're going around the curb at 45 miles an hour, you won't see the stop sign. You can't stop in time, and it could create an actual dangerous situation. So these things were coming up historically. So the U.S. Department of Transportation adopted a manual, and that was adopted by the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It ensures consistency across the state. So when you go from one city or one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction, it helps everybody be safe. Now, one of the key aspects is whether whether it's warranted, whether there's a warrant for a traffic signal or a stop sign. That's the kind of the phrase that they use, if it's warranted. And so the state has set regulations determining when you're allowed to put in a stop sign. And staff, I've watched, and from the outline you've seen in the number of years and months they've been working on this, they've done an unprecedented amount of work as compared to other jurisdictions, trying to see what will actually work out there. And the concern that I have is based on the latest data that they have with regards to the study that was completed last week, because they've left no stone unturned. Putting a stop sign in there could actually make that intersection more dangerous under state law. And as it doesn't meet the legal compliance for being lawfully installed, my recommendation would not be to put a stop sign in. So it just has not met the criteria for it.
Okay. So that one would be off the table, but we could look at doing other things such as the speed bumps. My only concern with speed bumps, again, it's which problem do we, and I say we because we have to deal with it from the policy standpoint of a council, but honestly, Chief, it's what's the problem we want to deal with, because the officers and stuff are going to deal with it, because if the whoever the person was in the Corvette that came down and could not make that curve and ended up in the tree, if they do the same thing with those speed bumps, they're probably going to be airborne as well. And so I don't have a clear, road on this thing. So tell the president I'll call him back, okay? So, it's Crowley Cassidy. I may sound like I'm rambling. I'm not trying to ramble. It's just, again, it's the chicken and the egg, because if we do one thing, we're going to have a second set of consequences. And they may be or may not be what the people there on Sanborn want, but we do need to slow them down. Is the stop sign the main one we're prohibited from doing?
Yes, I would definitely not recommend doing the stop sign from a legal perspective. The other one I would be very cautious about, and I haven't talked to Mr. Wolf about whether or not it's warranted, is with regards to the speed bumps. The reason why I would be initially cautious about it is because it's on a collector street. Just like you don't expect to find speed bumps on the highway, a lot of drivers as they're going through the area would not expect it for something that's been designated as a collector. So once you start putting these on collectors, not only does it potentially create situations that might be unexpected for people, such as going airborne or that sort of thing, but it also starts creating a precedent for around town. And because the city doesn't have a program as to what the standards are for putting in your speed bumps and where they are, it could create legal issues for the city, and it could create safety issues. So I'd have to look at Mr. Wolf as to whether or not speed bumps would even be warranted from an engineering perspective. I'm not clear that they are, and even if they were, I would be cautious about putting them on a collector street. So, Mr. Wolf, if you have any additional information.
So METCD does not have any warrants per se for speed humps or other horizontal traffic calming measures. There are other guidebooks to follow. NACTO comes to mind, National Association of Traffic Calming. I can't remember the entire acronym, but they give guidance on which types of traffic calming are effective in which situations. And typically horizontal and is accepted kind of across the board. Vertical, such as speed humps, say the ones without any wheel cutouts, are not recommended for collectors or arterials. There have been cases, though, where they have the wheel cutouts in place, where some agencies, such as Sacramento County and others, have allowed it. It's just a judgment call on whether or not on what the agency's precedence is. For thoroughfares such as collectors and arterials, typically we want to keep those open for fastest emergency response, and that's why historically we haven't installed them. I would say in residential areas such as McCune Avenue, all day long, I would have no issue installing those type of speed cushions which have the wheel cutouts, as it's not a main thoroughfare.
So what I'm hearing from Mr. Wolf, if you don't mind me jumping in, is for collector streets, it's not warranted to have speed bumps. There might be some ways of working around that, but that would be a major yellow flag if the council were to consider putting in speed bumps with vertical movement on them. So from a purely legal perspective, and which I'm assuming is also a safety perspective because the state has put in these safety requirements, something that would constrict would be something that would be legally safer and would be more in compliance with the rules as compared to a stop sign or speed bump on a collector.
thanks for clarifying the muddy water. And I just know that we've had issues because, as the mayor knows well, we've tried to get Caltrans to give us a stoplight on Highway 20, which is a lot more volume and traffic and stuff than Sanborn, and numerous accidents. And I knew we ran into roadblocks there. So I'm curious to see where the conversation goes, because I don't know what the answer is.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a behavior modification thing, trying to make society comply with what our requirements and policies are. I mean, you can put anything that's short of a wall to stop them. Because I live on a street that is a residential street that is adjacent to the Yuba City High School. And I had this situation for the last 37 years. And what do you do about it? Why speed bumps, stop signs, nothing's ever been done. And it continues to be an issue. And unfortunately, it's behaviors that we're trying to make policy on. And that's a hard thing to do. I know they did the calming on the 5th Street Bridge into Marysville. And I'd like to see if we could reach out possibly to them and see if that has made a difference, because that's probably what I see is narrowing the lanes down with the whatever the cones or whatever they are. Speed bumps are out and stop signs out. So that's about the only thing we have left to do at this point. I would like to see, however, if it's working. I've been over 5th Street and I've seen some crazy things, even with those calming things that have been done. Once again, it's behaviors. I'm a loss of words. You can't fix stupid. So, thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Cole.
All right, through the mayor. Yeah, I would echo pretty much what everyone else said. I would be interested to know what our options are as far as maybe decreasing the speed limit even more. What police and fire have to say about the width of the speed bumps and the fire trucks being able to go in there without it slowing them down in response times. I do like that you mentioned that the road's going to be narrowed anyway, so that might help some. At first, to be honest, I was slightly partial to the speed humps, so long as they had the cutouts for fire. But I think what Shannon said is totally factual. It's like when people are not expecting that, it could bring us more problems in a legal sense. My thought actually was, before Shannon mentioned the speed bumps, maybe the pinch point, the 2 pinch points, and then in between there, 1 speed bump. So it kind of spreads out the whole thing, but just with a lot of lights and notice for what the pinch point, and then 100 feet later, maybe 1 speed bump, and then another pinch point. It kind of spreads it out, and it's not as expensive as adding a bunch of speed humps. But I guess that's all I have to say about it. Sorry, I can't offer more. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf, Sanborn being designated as a collector, have that volume now?
Does it have, I'm sorry, the volume with respect?
I mean, a collector is designed for a certain amount of traffic visits, if you will. But
Okay. It currently does not have a large volume that you'd normally see on a collector. I believe the reason it was designated as a collector is, one, it is a contiguous roadway north-south, and with future build-out, it will be widened and have larger traffic volumes.
when Sanborn, as time goes on, and Sanborn is fully developed, are there options in that area to do things that are more permanent So I guess the question for me is, and Chief Hubbard, don't kill me here, because I fought for many years to keep speed bumps out of Yuba City for the reason that's been mentioned in regards to response time and the havoc it wreaks on big engines with lots of water on them. But it seems to me that something we might want to consider are your speed cushions. They're temporary. Sanborn, while being designated as a collector now, isn't carrying that level of traffic. I imagine it would require a decent amount of signage as people approach those so that they don't become ramps and they're just speed bumps. But to me, that would be something on the short term that might work. Again, I'm not trying to get us in any liability positions, but it will have the effect, at least, of keeping most people, and to use the vice mayors, it's not going to fix stupid, but it will, it will probably take care of a lot of the those who are at least have some common sense when they're behind the wheel. I'm not for taking any parking. I think we would end up with a nightmare in regards to people who would want to have parking in front of their resident and have us take it away. I think, I don't know, to me, that would be something. I do know, and I know you're familiar with Quick Build, we may even have some money available to us for these kind of temporary traffic calming things from outside of Yuba City, so we're not having to dip into our own pocket. It's possible. That's my thought is, if Sanborn isn't currently serving as a collector, perhaps that gives us a path to do something like this, and we're not impacting residents parking. Any more questions before I open it up to the public?
If I might.
Yeah.
Probably more for the chief on this one, because I'm one of those people that when you have the speed bumps, I do not like to blow out the undercarriage of my car and the suspension and stuff. So when I come up on these, even these small ones, you're going to have people like me that are pretty much almost going to stop, roll over it, and go. Have you seen that cause more accidents from people getting rear-ended from the back end on streets like this? Or just kind of your thoughts on how big of a concern that would be, because I think this is probably about our only option at this point.
I mean, we don't have any. I'm trying to think of speed bumps in our area. The only ones I can think of are up on Honor Oak, which is not even close to this type of street. So I couldn't speak to any accidents that has caused, but I think Josh gave that good example of, or someone did about, the standards that a motorist would expect from town to town. And a street like that does seem like a street that wouldn't not likely have those types of bumps on them. So I do think that, in the nighttime hours, that could be a potential issue. I don't know what the lighting looks like on Sanborn, to be honest, how visible it is. So it could be, is the answer. But we just don't have any streets like that in town to really compare it to.
Okay.
All right. I'd like to open up now for public comment on item number 13. If there's anybody that would like to talk to us about this item, please approach the podium, state your name.
Hi, my name's Tony Curlin. I live on Anna Drive, which is just a block from Sanborn. One of the things that concerns me is, yes, it is a collector, but there are residences on both sides of the street. There's no commercial properties there. But the traffic that comes through there is heavy in the morning and heavy in the evening, because people use that to get across, take Sanborn, down to Cherry, over to Harding, to get, to that side of the city. A lot of those are big trucks, not, super trucks, but F-250s and big pickups. And they don't slow down for anybody. So that is a problem. Narrowing the lanes for big trucks like that could be a problem. I like the delineator idea, because people are not going to want their trucks scuffed with plastic or whatever. But the traffic goes through there so fast. And one of the things is if you actually calm the traffic on that street, they might be making a right on McCune and a left on Anna and flying down, because we have people going 50, 60 miles an hour down our street. So it's a no-win situation. So my 2 cents.
Thank you, Tony. Anybody else?
Okay. I lived on Sanborn when it was a dead-end street when it wasn't connected. And we get people going 65, 70, 80 miles an hour down our street all the time. And they just go like a bat out of hell. And you're out there putting your garbage can out and it just scares you to death. And so people drive extremely fast. It's scary, it's dangerous, somebody's going to get killed. There is not a lot of traffic, but what traffic there is really darn fast. And there's got to be something done to slow that pace down because somebody's going to get hurt. Now, as the area where I live, we don't have sidewalks and curbs and all that stuff. But as on the other end of Sanborn, they're putting in that new subdivision. I don't know how many homes it is, but there's a bunch of them. So they're going to impact us because a lot of people will come from that subdivision and go like a bat out of hell because they can, because there is no stop sign or anything else. But I think there's got to be something, some kind of a calming bump or something to slow these people down, because these people that drive really, really fast don't want to slow, they don't want to hit the bump with their car. And because they don't want to hit the bump, they are going to slow down if they're going to bump something, even if it's a little bump, it's going to bother them. I like when I get my garbage can, sometimes I push the garbage can out a little bit trying to slow them down, and I wonder if sometimes I'm going to take out my garbage can, but it is what it is. Any questions you guys have?
Can you repeat your name, please?
It's Tim Dalske, D-A-L-S-K-E. And we've spent a lot of time, a lot of meetings, a lot of gonna do this, gonna do that. The reason the turnabout didn't work is it wasn't designed properly, because when you go one way, they could actually go through that turnabout 80 miles an hour and never have to turn around. So it was designed properly because one was 3/4 of a circle, the other one wasn't even a circle. It just went straight through there. And it just didn't work because it wasn't restrictive enough. But you got to do something. If you don't do something, somebody's going to get run over, dog's going to get killed, and it's just not one of the residents going to get a gun and shoot somebody. So it's after a while, something's going to happen.
That's funny. I guess I'm next. My name is Ken Bates. I live at 728 Sanborn. The car that did crash into the house just south of me, a few years before that, one came the other direction and crashed into my house. So he didn't have that on there, but that did happen. We did collect over 100 signatures to try to get something to happen. If we can only get by with some speed bumps, I think what'll happen with the speed bumps is once they're known to be there, somebody will they'll go elsewhere, because they won't want to slow down for the speed bumps. So I think once the speed bumps are in, that's going to help the whole situation, because the people will just, it's people living in that area will come there. The rest are hustling through. They won't want to be there because of the speed bumps. Also, I hope not to have the curbs in front of my house painted red again. I'd like to be able to park in front of my house. So that's 2 more cents.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Yvonne. I am not from Sanborn. I'm from 2nd Street. I just wanted to see how things went tonight. I do want to say we did have that meeting, and we appreciate you coming, and also the police chief. One thing I wanted to say is I know that there is a struggle with funding for more people to do traffic control or traffic police. And is that an option where maybe something can be done to have more enforcement out there so that once people start to get tickets and they see that there's somebody out there, that will make them think twice before they continue to speed through like the way that they're doing now. I feel like it's important to think of that as a solution and to have people obey the law and to understand that that is an important thing to do. And so I fully support more traffic control in more places. I know that they're stressed. I know that they don't have enough people. And I feel like that is a huge, huge thing to have somebody there, to have the police be there, for people to get tickets, for people to be held accountable, and for them to have to do what the law says they have to do. And that's all I have to say about that.
Could you do us a favor and give us your last name, please?
Oh, my last name is Silao, S-I-L-A-O.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, bring it back to the council.
Through the mayor. Back to where we started. I mean, I know we haven't always been fans of speed bumps, but I think that's really kind of where we're heading. But Mr. Curlin said something that I think we've got to be very cognizant of and not go and install these on the side streets really quick. But if we see this mitigate Sanborn and all of a sudden they just jump one street over, we need to be prepared to drop into those neighborhoods and drop some in there as well to where people can't weave and go around them. The only way you were going to, as Mike said, fix stupid is take their opportunity to be stupid away. And if we simply just move it one street over, all we're doing is fixing one problem and creating another. So can we make sure that we take a look at that, not just Sanborn, but those adjacent streets to where if I'm really being deviant and I want to bypass this, where am I probably going to duck and dive so that I can slip through there really quick? And let's try to be ahead of them.
Yes? No? I thought maybe there was, I was feeling the presence. I will add this is that as my fellow council members have stated, you know, this is not limited, and the public, Yvonne said this as well, this is just not limited to this one area. People are crafty, they follow the path of least resistance, and they will find a path, if one exists, where they can go as unimpeded as possible. I applaud the efforts that the Public Works has done. I know up in our area in District 2, we've asked, you know, and had the same concerns. It makes common sense to put a stop sign in or some sort of signage, but in doing so, you may be actually increasing the liability to the city, which, you know, we can't do that either. But they will find, if there one exists, they will find a way to go quickly. And we do need to your point, I do think we need to make sure we're looking at this from as high a level as possible. Any other comments from the council? Mr. Wolf, do you feel like you have, would you like a little more direction? I think what you're kind of hearing is maybe this speed cushion. That's easier for me to say than speed hump or bump. I mean, do you have any heartache with doing that from a professional point of view?
I would say this area is very unique in the fact that it does have lining of residents on both sides of the roads and low traffic volume. So I would say a speed cushions through there, not concerned now, especially if they're a temporary measure. Going into the future, as build out and future homes come through there, we probably would want to reevaluate, and as the west side develops, narrow the road further. I would be fine.
Hold on. We can't have you speak from the audience. Hold on. Public comment time is over. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Mr. Wolf.
So as I was saying, I would say I wouldn't be completely uncomfortable with installing them here based on the volume of traffic that goes through here now. It may be something we want to consider in the future and in other areas throughout the city as well. One thing that happens is if you install something in one area, people will see it and point to it and say, why don't you do that over here? So that's why I'm bringing up the fact that it's a collector so much, because if we install something like that here, over here, someone can say, why don't you install it on Clark Avenue, Gray Avenue? So another reason why we are going towards having a neighborhood traffic calming program. Part of that will give us direction on maybe you can consider on a collector installing speed humps or speed cushions if it meets these criterion, since MUTCD does not give us that criterion for volume.
I hear what you're saying, and obviously defer to your professional opinion and respect it completely. I just wonder, because, I mean, from a point of view of answering those questions and not placing you in the position of having that, is if this is a decision that we make it known that this is a temporary solution, if you will, if it turns out to be that, based upon traffic flow. You know, I think you could easily point to others that are collectors that have that necessary traffic flow. I think we might be covered. I don't know, Shannon. You're shaking your head.
It gives us arguments.
Okay. So it sounds to me like the two things I've heard are delineators of speed cushions. You know, as a council, I think Mr. Wolf's looking for us to provide him with a little more feedback than we currently are.
Speed cushions.
Through the mayor, speed cushion.
Same.
All right.
And through the mayor, if I could have you not vote on this item, I think staff has got enough direction.
We weren't going to vote.
Okay.
I felt your presence again.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We should take a look at the quick build, though. That might be something.
Definitely. And with any of these, one of the main objectives with any of these pilot projects is we're doing something temporary that we can collect data on through our data, our radars and data collectors. And if it is beneficial, throw that back in an application for a grant for a permanent fix.
Excellent. All right. There you go. I appreciate the public's participation in this item. All right, we're moving on to item number 14, amendment to the 2021-2029 City of Yuba City General Plan Housing Element. This will be presented by Doug Libby, who's our Development Services Director.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Good to be with you tonight. Anytime you look at an amendment to a housing element, it seems daunting, but let me assure you it's really just a housekeeping item here. So tonight you're considering a resolution to amend our current housing element. If you haven't seen the document, that is a picture of the cover. Our housing element was adopted by your council in the spring of 2022. It was in March, I believe. And then it was certified by State Housing and Community Development, HCD, in May of 2022. Now, in that document, we were required to comply with the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, RHNA is what it's called, is that the city was required to rezone about 10.4 acres of land to multifamily housing. In the original housing element, we identified candidate sites. But after the document was adopted, sometimes property changes hands. People have a change of heart. And so when we actually went forward to implement that rezoning, we realized that, hey, we have a different mix of properties. So we went back to the drawing board, so to speak, and came up with a new set of properties that we brought forward to the council a year later in May of 2023. And it got adopted. I'm really proud of the fact that implementing a lot of housing elements in rezoning property can be quite controversial. we were only required to rezone 10.4 acres, but we were actually able to rezone 68 acres to multifamily housing, significantly over the requirement. Unfortunately, our friends at State HCD are requiring the city to go back and update the document to reflect the properties that were actually rezoned. So this has turned out to be more of a housekeeping item, like I mentioned. It's updating tables, it's updating our lists, it's calling out the location, the mapping of these properties. And so for this exercise, the housing element was adopted through an addendum to the general plan EIR. When we rezoned the properties, we did so through what's called a mitigated negative declaration. So for this effort, there are no new environmental effects identified that could increase the severity of previously identified effects and that would require additional environmental review. I know that that's legal speak for we're not doing additional environmental review. And so for this item, we're recommending you conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution to update our housing element. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Libby before I open up the public? All right. Public hearing to the amendment to the 2021-2029 City of Yuba City General Plan Housing Element is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on this issue, please provide your statement from the podium and state your name and address for the record. Am I not seeing anybody? I thought maybe Tony was getting up. He must be talking to Cassidy. All right. No comments? All right, hearing no further comment on the issue, I'm closing the public hearing and bringing the matter back to the council.
Through the mayor.
Yes.
Move to adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Yuba City adopting the revised 2021 to 2029 City of Yuba City General Plan Housing Element.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Cole, a second by Councilmember Kirchner. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any noes? Item 14 passes unanimously. Item number 15, zoning code 26-01, mobile open air and sidewalk vending ordinance update. Mr. Libby. That's an eye chart.
For a second.
Yeah.
Okay. So the name, that's a mouthful. So informally, we just call it the mobile vendor ordinance update. And so we're updating it to address health concerns, as you know, provide for increased enforcement opportunities, provisions, implement new state law requirements governing sidewalk vending, clarify limitations on regulations to promote young entrepreneurs. Your council looked at a draft ordinance on January 20th of this year and unanimously initiated an update to our municipal code. It was February 25th where the Planning Commission considered the draft ordinance and unanimously recommended approval of it to your council. Fast forward to March of this year, March 17th, your council conducted a public hearing on the draft that was recommended by the commission. And after accepting public comment and I would say having significant discussion amongst yourselves on the council, it was determined to continue the item to address a few things. And so we had a little housekeeping, a homework assignment. So we revised the draft ordinance to allow mobile vendors to be at a location on commercial private property with landowner consent to vend up to 6 hours per day and to be on site a total of 9 hours to allow for setup and cleanup before having to relocate. Council wanted us to look at revising the draft ordinance to allow mobile vending to occur on unimproved property with approval of a temporary use permit issued by the city. And then finally, the council asked that we conduct additional public outreach to the local restaurant association, and that was completed during the month of April. And there were no additional public comments received, although I did receive an email over the last few days from Tony from Tony Bob's Hot Dogs, who spoke at this March meeting. He wanted to thank the council and thank staff for working with him, and he had no further comments on the matter. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about the temporary use permit. So as the ordinance is currently written, when you don't meet the kind of, I'll say, the normal requirements, and so it's come up where the city may want to allow opportunities for food trucks to go for a special event or to a location. And so it's the temporary use permit, which would be the mechanism that we would use. It could be allowed for a variety of short-term activities. As currently written, it would be allowed on publicly owned property sponsored by educational, fraternal, religious, or service organizations directly engaged in civic or charitable work or tax-exempt organizations. It would allow other uses that the Director of Development Services determines as similar. Activities limited to 3 or fewer consecutive days within a 90-day period, and uses not meeting the requirements could be forwarded to the Planning Commission for review. I would like to focus on the second and fourth items, the public property provision and then the time limit. As staff was kind of looking at this right before coming back to council, we looked at, is this really going to get us to where we want to be? And so we have a kind of an additional thought that we wanted to present to the council. And so we have an updated recommendation to revise that temporary use permit section 8-5.5340D. And so it would clarify that on publicly owned property, one, that public entities could apply. We think we probably had it clear under federal tax exempt agencies, but just saying public entities outright we thought was a beneficial addition. And then also clarifying that you could operate up to 3 days per week, but not more than 9 days per month over a 6-month period. So what that really means is that maybe during a month you could have one 3-day weekend, and then the other weekends would be 2-day events. And so we thought that that may be something the council might be interested in. We also thought looking at having an option for private property and events to be conducted on private property, having appropriate commercial zoning and property owner authorization for the same time limits. Now, it's important to note that the city has the ability to put conditions on these events. So it's not like it's you just get approved. You would need to comply. And if we got an application, staff would be routing these over to our first responders, police and fire, to review and provide comment and help formulate conditions, as well as our colleagues in Public Works. This language here is actually just language that got pushed down because of the new language added for private property. So this type of action is exempt from environmental review pursuant to section 15061B3 of the CEQA guidelines because the proposed revisions provide refinements to existing allowed uses and additional clarity regarding the standards for mobile vending operations in the city of Yuba City. So we have an updated recommendation, conduct a public hearing. I will not read that to you, but it's introducing the ordinance by title only, waiving the first reading of the ordinance. And if the council is inclined to the new amendment, incorporating recommended changes by staff to section 8-5.5340D. So I'm here to answer any questions as well as our city attorney. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mr. Libby. Before we open the public hearing, any questions from the council? All right, doesn't look like there are any. The public hearing for the zoning code 26-01 mobile open air and sidewalk vending ordinance update is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on this issue, please provide your statement from the podiums and state your name and address for the record. Do we have any additional comments from the public? Not seeing any. All right, hearing no further comment on this issue, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring the matter back to the council.
Mr. Libby, could you put the recommendation back up again, please? The language on the ordinance. Thank you.
Through the mayor. Mr. Libby, thanks for all your work on this. We are creating a whole new thing because the other one was so broke. So I appreciate, first of all, the work you've put into this. Personally, I like the ordinance without the proposed new twist that's in there. And it does give me grief. And the reason it gives me grief is because we start looking at allowing entities, public entities, to potentially have things on their properties and more days than it should be. And we've already got one public entity property here in town that is already a blight. It's not being monitored as far as we can go by there on the weekends and there'll be anything from a garage sale to food trucks to everything else. Under the proposed regulations, it's kind of like,
Tuesday on Government Watch, you can support or sponsor. Help keep the community aware with Yuba-Sutter.LIVE.
Yuba-Sutter.LIVE. It's the truth that comes through.